is a very important question. Actually, I have not addressed in my presentation because of shortage of time. But this communication is very, very important. Communication is the heart of the smart grid system. If the communication is not done properly, the whole system will fail. And he is addressing about a communication system. That there is, as of now, there is a bit of delay. Whatever technology, whatever communication you make it. Say you start from a relay in a substation, it generates some data. It has to come to the RTU in a substation, and RTU also processes it, and again RTU send it to the control center, and control center also you have different systems. Again it processes and segregate the information wherever is needed. But there is no real time it is possible because each equipment consumes whatever the fraction of time the delay is built. To what extent you make this delay, see that it is reduced. So especially for protection related things, the time is very, very critical. For protection control of this system, it is very, very important. Time is very critical. But for data, like a meter data, you want to see that, historical data, the time is not a critical component. So what they do is, the conventional system also say, suppose the data generated in Trivandrum substation to reach central control center in Delhi, it takes little time. But to avoid that, what they do is, it is a PME kind of technology, they use it such a way that it directly reduces your time lapse to see that it reduces this one, especially for your controlling or protecting your network. Directly it comes so that there is no intermittent delay built in that. But again, what kind of communication technologies you adopt, that also matters. And how you make it the data priority to see that it is given a priority for transmission. So it addresses this one, but existing one, you have a hierarchical system, so there is bound to be a kind of small fraction of time left out. But to avoid this one only, the PME kind of thing, you have used whether it is a fast communication or avoid this layer, to see that the data is available for taking protective controlling measures. But for other things, the time is not a constraint. For collecting the data or seeing your energy meter reading or data and other things, not a time critical thing. But for protection, it is very, very important. So for that now even they are introducing the PMEs all over the grid to see that you get the data as quickly as possible without going through a hierarchical system to reduce your time consuming. That's the only it works. But communication, what type of communication you want to use, 2G, 3G or satellite or such things are very critical, and it should be based on the application. Different application needs different type of communication. I hope I thrown some light on that.
The question is, you have studied regarding the street light management system, and you have worked out that in most of the cities having a power factor of say 0.5 or less than say 0.5.
Football meaning.
In similar manner, as you have indicated that looking to the fault passage indicator and your gateway through to communication system for isolation of the faulty area, and high TND losses or ATNC losses is there.
We have done this for in Warangal district. We have just given this information. We have just surveyed the distribution network for this fault locations and identifying the losses. We are in the process of developing, because that AT&T losses and everything is majorly calculated at the software-based level itself. Like once we get the transmission lines data, like transmission line conductor capacity, the current capacity of the conductor, how much exactly the load has been connected to that one. Once we get the data from the transmission lines, basically the current flowing from the conductor, we can able to tell about the AT&C losses itself. We have not done exactly the AT&C losses. We have not calculated from that data. We just done the analysis how we can derive the AT&C losses from this type of the equipment which we have put on the system. Now in the process of increasing or developing this type of solution for getting that type of losses information also. That is in the processing stage. Thank you.
Technological evolutions and the other factors like smart grid. None of the speakers have taken into consideration some major factors which make India deprive of energy in situations which were mentioned last year, 2 events. Water and politics. This is a very sensitive issue. So, the difference, what Sir was talking about, Graham Bell and Thomas Alva Edison. Today, in any village, any domestic telephonic connection, you can get an invoice prepared at the center and communicated with the client. Whereas the same person who pays his telephone bill regularly tries to get as much out of his electricity bills without paying. Government of Gujarat has done this revolution. I understand as a layman, Jyotigram Yojana is nothing else but just, correct me Patel sir, wherever I am wrong. Jyotigram Yojana is nothing else, just forcing and implementing the system and the procedures at the end level, so that everybody starts paying. Sir, we cannot neglect. आज अगर एक स्टैंडर्ड बनाने में 12 साल लग जाते सर और एक नेशनल ग्रिड बनाने में 65 साल भी कम पड़ गए, तो डू यू थिंक सर कि ये हम आगे ले जा सकते हैं और कितने साल के बाद ये सब इम्प्लीमेंटेशन हम एक्चुअल में इम्प्लीमेंट कर पाएंगे?
As the question raised by you, totally I did not get the point. But as you mentioned that the Jyotigram Yojana, again it was one of the measure of a load management only. In our system, it was a load management, it was a segregation of feeder. From rural feeder to the dedicated feeder to the villages which supplies power, uninterrupted power to the villages. So that is one part. The second part, as you said, that the time frame. Recently Mr. Murugesan also mentioned that even the developed country also, in integration, means in totality, it is not implemented. So in our system, particularly the task force is also formulated by the Government of India. And in Gujarat, we have one pilot project in Uttar Gujarat Distribution Company. There they are in process of implementing. So we cannot at present commit that within what time frame it will be implemented, because it is a mammothous task in the sense that all the application is to be integrated. But like SCADA, then again the customer care, then as mentioned, then the outage system, I think it is easier to implement in our transmission network. And some of our 4 or 5 substations are already on the smart grid. They are automatic. So as the technology is widely, as it is mentioned, that all stakeholders are also required to be sensitized. That is very important in this process. So at present we cannot commit actual time frame that within what time do we implement.
I have to recognize the presence of some of the dignitaries here, starting with Paresh Patel. Paresh Bhai Patel is the current president of the Southern Gujarat Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Please give him a big hand. Southern Gujarat Chamber of Commerce, Shri Kamlesh Yagnik. Please give him a big hand. We have with us the past president, Mr. Chetan Shah of Southern Gujarat Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and I had I would say the real luck to work with him, and we did a lot of things, and he is leading Goldie Green, a major manufacturer of photovoltaics, with about 100 megawatt of manufacturing capacity in Gujarat. So we welcome him. Please give him a big hand. And may I also request a person, I would say a charming person, a person somehow I like very much. I don't know, there must be some other connect from some other planet. Shri Dilip Bhai Chashmawala, past president of the Southern Gujarat Chamber of Commerce. Please give him a big hand. May I request Padmini ji to please bring over the mementos for these 4 gentlemen immediately. Gujarat Chamber of Commerce, and may I request Patel Sahab to give it. It's better if H.S. Patel Sahab gives this to him. May I request the incoming president Kamlesh Yagnik ji to also receive this sheet from Shri H.S. Patel. A memento of the IPE Conclave 2013, specifically made for this purpose. May I now request the memento for Shri Chetan Shah, past president SGCCI. मैं रिक्वेस्ट श्री पटेल साहब को अगेन काइंडली सर मैं आपको थोड़ा सा और तकलीफ दूंगा सर मैं गेट वन मोर फॉर श्री दिलीप चश्मावाला लास्ट बट नॉट द लीस्ट प्लीज कम ओवर सर एंड आई वुड रिक्वेस्ट बोथ आवर दिनेश मांडलेवाला एंड सब टू टेक अ पिक्चर विद हिम. Thank you, gentlemen. Wonderful to have you on the dais in this excellent discussion. Is there any other questions on Smart Grid left? कुछ पूछना चाहेंगे Smart Grid के बारे में?
I think before we move on to the next session, because they want to cover up the next session also. So all the speakers dealt upon the Smart Grid, but the things which they have mentioned, the part of a Smart Grid also, that all the speakers, majority of the speaker also shared the concern about the failure of the North Grid. Again, I request Mr. Iyer that if there is some mechanism is developed, that the respective load dispatch center, the authority, statutory authority should be given that without getting the orders from the higher up, they should follow the grid discipline. That is very important. So, as you mentioned that the 90 crore population was affected by that grid failure, even the ex-BHEL representative also shown the concern. So, my request that such things should be also, as a part of deliberations, it should be taken up. As a utility, I think the Smart Grid is very important with a perspective, more perspective on transmission and distribution, because the transmission again has as I mentioned, that it has a level playing field. But on the distribution side, there are two phases. One is the utility and second side the consumer. So the Smart Grid helps not only to the utility but to the consumer also. All the speakers, more particularly Murugeshan, he has come out with the various components of the Smart Grid, and he has also presented well all the facets of the implementation of Smart Grid, and I am happy that the CPRI has also taken initiative and they are organizing various workshops also for the implementation of the Smart Grid.
Outage management. Away this forum to Ashwini so that he can handle the other two speakers, Mr. Pankaj Bhuwania first and then Mr. R.K. Sharma. Pankaj Bhuwania and Mr. R.K. Sharma. But before that, let me put up a point here. See, the Smart Grid and renewable energy are like brother and sister. Right? They have to be, the integration of the grid is essential both at the transmission distribution sector to actually allow renewable energy. I'll give you the example. आज 40% के करीब टोटल बिजली की चोरी मानी जाती है. हम लोग बोलते हैं, सरकार बोलती है 30%, चलो फिगर ले लेते हैं. 30% मीन्स हमारी 60 से 70 गीगावाट की बिजली है नहीं, जो हम बता रहे हैं. अगर वो है नहीं, तो आप उसको कोयले के पुराने प्लांट जो डेप्रिशिएट हो चुके हैं, आज से 20 साल पहले लगा हुआ प्लांट जीरो कॉस्ट का हो गया है, डेप्रिशिएट हो गया बैलेंस शीट पे, उसमें से जो बिजली आ रही है, हम बोल रहे 2 रुपये में आ रही है, 1.5 रुपये. समझिए आप 15 रुपये की फीड इन टैरिफ से चलते चलते हम 6 या 7 रुपये में भी पहुंचे. तो अब जो चोरी मानी जाएगी वो 6-7 रुपये की चोरी मानी जाएगी. जो नहीं आ रही है, या रिट्रीवल लैक ऑफ, तो हमें सोचना पड़ेगा कि दिस हैज टू बी स्टॉप। तो हमारा जो 2008 में जो चला था, विच वॉज नेशनल एक्शन प्लान फॉर क्लाइमेट चेंज, बेसिकली इट वॉज अंडर द प्रेशर फ्रॉम यूएस एंड other rich powers of the world that we went into this discussion, and then India made a national action plan for climate change, जिसके अंदर दो बड़े मिशन थे। One was the national solar mission, and जिसके ऊपर सौर ऊर्जा मिशन हम इसको जो बोल रहे हैं, और दूसरा था national mission for enhanced energy efficiency, which is to use, diffuse and produce and manage energy efficiently. So basically, energy efficiency will be a major subject which will come into the ambit of play for all of us. And I tell you, we have to look at energy efficiency as a very important issue, and energy efficiency connection with smart grid. And when we go in the future, अभी आपको बिजली एक ही प्रकार के भाव में मिलती है पूरे दिन में। अब वो एक प्रकार का भाव नहीं मिलेगा, सुबह की बिजली का अलग भाव होगा, दोपहर की बिजली का अलग भाव होगा, शाम का अलग भाव होगा। This is called very simply time of day tariff. So India will introduce time of day tariff, and then the nature of electricity produced in the time of day. Suppose in the first half of the day solar is available, then generally we see solar and wind actually fluctuate. अब गुजरात में wind ज़्यादा नहीं होगा क्योंकि there are some system problems, so Gujarat cannot take too much of wind, which we, yeah. So basically what is happening is that in the evening the wind is more. Yeah, and peak load power, what Patel Saab is saying. So we have, one is the base load demand, which is constant, predictable load, and peak load. To be very frank with you, peak load, जो कि urgent load है, only two type of power plants were able to take care of this. One is the hydro power plant. जैसे आपकी नर्मदा गेट खोलने से पावर प्रोड्यूस होगा, आम आदमी के लिए बता रहा हूँ, जो टेक्निकल एक्सपर्ट्स हैं उन्हें तो पता है क्या पीक पावर प्लांट है and what happens. So in the case of immediate generation of power and satisfying peak demands, and we call it peak shaving, so automatically hydro power plants were able to do it. लेकिन पिछले 5 या 6 साल के अंदर हमारी जो हाइड्रो पावर की शेयर है राष्ट्रीय इसमें, उसके अंदर अभी हमारी शेयर 25% की होती थी पहले, अब 19% पे आ गई है। मतलब 6% हमने लॉस किया है, क्योंकि हाइड्रो पावर प्लांट तो आ ही नहीं रहे हैं लिटरली। अब क्या है, दूसरा पावर वो है गैस, और गैस की परिस्थिति तो हमने बात करी, जो पीक लोड पावर प्लांट है। ऐसी परिस्थिति में पीकिंग पावर प्लांट्स का बड़ा एक सवाल उठेगा, जो अर्बन पीक डेफिसिट को कम कर सकता है, क्योंकि ये पीक डेफिसिट्स के लिए हमें बड़ी मुसीबत आने वाली है फ्यूचर में, और इसीलिए हमारे शहर अब मुसीबत में आ सकते हैं। तो इसमें कल एनर्जी एक्सचेंज भी इन्वॉल्व था, आज हमारे साथ नहीं है। एक्सचेंज के थ्रू जो पावर मिलेगी, जो मल्टी डिफरेंट टाइप ऑफ पावर कैन बी परचेज, सोलर कैन बी परचेज, एंड देन इट कैन बी गिवन इन एज इज वेरियस कंडीशन, एंड देन टाइम ऑफ डे टैरिफ, कि भैया एक भाव में नहीं मिलेगी, अलग अलग समय पे अलग अलग भाव पे मिलेगी। तो ये सब पॉसिबल तब है जब आपका स्मार्ट ग्रिड होगा। स्मार्ट ग्रिड के बिना और उसके इम्प्लीमेंटेशन के बिना ये सब संभव नहीं है। इट इज नॉट पॉसिबल विदाउट अ स्मार्ट ग्रिड। सो दैट इज द इम्पोर्टेंस ऑफ द डिस्कशन वी हैड टुडे इन सूरत, इन गुजरात, starting from here, and this is a very, very wonderful discussion. Beginning has been done. I think a lot of interaction has to happen between us in the future as well. We'll try to bring more forums into Gujarat. Today we have come to Surat. I must announce that we are planning the next India Power and Energy Conclave, because after 2 years we have the Southern Gujarat, but we want to do it annually, so maybe the next one, because they are not doing the Energy Expo next year. So I will take it to Gujarat for 1 year, to Baroda, and come back again to Surat, if the time permits. That's the only way. But we'll have them as partners always. That's for sure. I can assure you. So that's what I announced. Discussion will continue. I have decided that India Power and Energy Conclave will stay in Gujarat. किसी स्टेट में नहीं जाएगी, इसको कम से कम इसको चलने दो। तो हम सिटीज़ में ले जाएं, लोगों को डिस्कस कराएं, आप लोग बाहर आएँ, और यंग लोगों को इंजीनियरिंग कॉलेजेस से दे शुड पार्टिसिपेट। गुजरात के जितनी इंजीनियरिंग कॉलेजेस के लोग हैं उनको आना चाहिए। इस वक्त एग्ज़ाम थे, मैंने समझा इस बात को कि एग्ज़ाम के टाइम पे ये सब हुआ, तो यंग लोग हमारे साथ नहीं है। हम कई लोगों का समय तो गुजर चुका होगा, कईयों का लास्ट पोर्शन में एडवाइजिंग पे होगा, कोई मेंटरिंग करना चाहेंगे, लेकिन हमारी जो यंग ब्लड है वो यहाँ दिखनी चाहिए ज़्यादा। मेरे को यहाँ कुछ 30% दिख रही है तकरीबन, और मेरे को ये 50% दिखनी चाहिए फ्यूचर में, बिकॉज दे आर द फ्यूचर ऑफ द कंट्री। दे मस्ट अंडरस्टैंड दिस सब्जेक्ट्स, because if they understand this subject, we will have hands-on engineers, hands-on technologists, hands-on economists, and that will change the destiny of this country, the state, and each individual in this. I would say every citizen of India And every citizen of India, when he is able to contribute, he will contribute to the world economy, I will tell you. He will transform the world. So with these words, may I request Ashwini Dhar to take over from now and conduct this session on solar, if possible. And I would request if Saab has time, he should stay. And may I request Dhar to take over from here, please.
Once again, good afternoon, friends. I am back with you. At the end, Professor Ayer just talked about the young persons. I mean, why we don't have young persons here listening to the issues that concern the country. Gentlemen and ladies, it's so perplexing that in none of the engineering institutions, renewable energy is a part of curriculum. They will talk fundamentally on how to produce power using the fossil fuel, mode. Whether it is steam-based, whether it is water-based, whether it is nuclear or gas, nowhere in the country we have at the graduation level the subject of solar energy or biogas energy or wind energy. It is so surprising when this country knows that it's almost against the wall as far as the conventional, so-called conventional energy is concerned, and why our people who plan the technical education have overlooked this issue that they have not included as a part of the graduation level engineering curriculum. Now, starting with this, the last session of this conclave, that India is going to be a solar superpower in 2022. I was just looking at where India stands. India stands that we have about 300 days of sun, which translates into about 2,000 hours of sun every year, which translates it into 6 hours of bright sun every day. I think this sun either is used for growing plants or drying wet clothes. We have not used it for any basic application what this country requires. If we see the total area of the country and 300 days of clear sun, 300 clear sunny days, we have, this country, India, has the capacity to generate 6 lakh gigawatt of power. I repeat, 6 lakh gigawatt of power. This is, even if we understand that the photovoltaic cells operate at a 10% capacity, that's the minimal efficiency, we have enough power that will almost outstrip the demand of power by 2050 by 1,000 times. That is, whatever is the estimated demand in the country by 2015, if we are able to harness the solar power with even the most inefficient photovoltaics, that is, which operated 10%, we will outstrip that demand by almost 1,000 times. So please let the planners of the country, the leaders of the country, the government of the day understand that sun is not only for drying wet clothes and growing vegetation. It has a far more relevance in this country. I was very happy to read one lead line today in today's Divya Bhaskar. It was written in Gujarati. I asked my friend Mr. Hitan Mehta to translate for me. The lead starts that let every Indian start their day by saluting the sun god, because after all it's the sun god only that will really bring us out of this mess that to which our policy planners and the politicians of the day have put us in all these 67 years of independent India. Now, to take this discussion further, I would request Mr. Pankaj Bhuwania, he's our director from Green Millions, to come and give some wonderful information. We were co-speakers in the last session where he says how apathetic approach of the government is towards the renewable sector. So I would request Mr. Pankaj to come over and just simply share his views and let the audience know where this country is going as far as solar is concerned. Thank you, Pankaj.
Thank you, Dhar sir, dignitaries on the stage, and ladies and gentlemen. I would introduce myself as Pankaj Bhuwania, and I'm very, very happy to represent Green Brilliance Energy Private Limited. We are based out of Baroda, and we are a complete solar manufacturing and a solution company. So we are very happy being in Gujarat, and very, very happy to address this audience in Surat. Starting from where Dhar Sahab has left, just many things have been discussed over last couple of days, yesterday and today. Just to bring back the perspective of this conclave into solar, certain numbers will help you to understand what are we doing in India, what is our energy manufacturing capacities, and where are we into solar in these capacities. Just to start with certain numbers, the total capacity of generation which we have in India is 223 gigawatts as on 2013. In terms of megawatts, it's 223,000 megawatts. And you will be surprised to know that out of this 223,000 megawatts of power manufacturing which we have in India, only 1400 to 1450 megawatts is from solar. In percentage terms, it is just 0.6%. That is what we are doing in India. Of our total energy requirements which we are producing, we are just there at 0.6% from solar. I don't know how many people were there yesterday when the Energy Minister Saurabh Bhai was here. I was really impressed by what he was talking. He was not at all talking of gigawatts in 2022, 150 gigawatts, 200 gigawatts in 2050 something. He was just talking of what we are doing today and how difficult or how challenging rather I would like to put that it is to go from here. The basic thing which he was talking to it in Gujarat, we are having a power manufacturing of around 12,000 megawatts. We have a requirement of around 9,500 to 10,000 megawatts. So we are one of the rare states in India which is power surplus by 2,000 megawatts. Another state which I know is Chhattisgarh, which is a solar power surplus state. Now what he was trying to say by giving these numbers was that where do we produce our power? Which are the fuels which we are using at this point of time? I mean obviously almost, if I give you the numbers, almost 67% of the total energy requirements of the country is being produced by using coal, which is a depleting fuel all across the world. And obviously the quality of coal is also a huge issue. The rest comes from hydro, which is around 19%, which Ayyar Sahab has said. The nuclear is around 2.25% and renewable is around 12%, of which solar is just 5%. Now the reason why he was saying that is the procurement of fuel, whether it's coal or oil or gas, it's a huge challenge. And this is not going to continue forever. Why are we not growing at the pace which we need the power to grow at? I'll give you a little bit of idea that for us to become or to wipe out our entire deficit of power, we have to grow almost twice as we are growing on the GDP. If we are growing at around 8% of a GDP, that is a wish we want to do, then our power sector has to grow by 16%. Just to ensure that in next 20-25 years, every single village, every person in this country has an access to power. But we are actually growing not by 16%, we are just doing by 3 to 4%. So what are the bottlenecks? Obviously one is finance. Power projects require a lot of money and huge gestation period. You just remember these little things which I am talking about, because ultimately when we come to solar, these things are the one area which solar absolutely addresses. This is the main important thing, the procurement of fuel and availability of fuel. So three things which are hampering us to wiping up our power deficit is one is availability of fuels for a longer term, the long gestation periods of power plants to put up and produce, and the third very important thing is the capital cost. Now if you look at solar, you have, as Ashwini Dhar Sahab said, you have free power available. The energy, the fuel is freely available. It is flowing everywhere and you don't have to pay forever. Entire humanity forever doesn't have to pay for solar. So one important thing which was a problem in other energy sector, which is a fuel, solar is free. The second important thing is the long gestation period. In solar, a 1 megawatt power plant you can actually do in 2 months. You can actually start to finish in 1.5 to 2 months. So gestation periods is practically nothing. And on account of capex, if you really look what has happened, of course somebody can have a, for the sake of discussion, that a thermal power plant will take around 2 to 3 crore rupees per megawatt, and solar at this point of time will cost you around 7.5 to 8 crore per megawatt. But if you look at what has happened over the last couple of years, the capital cost of a mega-sized power plant has come down by 100%. 2 years back, we were quoting 15 crores for a mega-sized power plant. Today we are quoting around 7.5 crore mega-sized power plant. What has happened? Obviously the costs have come down, the innovations have gone high, and the efficiencies have really gone high. Couple of years back, a cell would be around 2.2 to 2.3 watt cell. Today you are going as high as 4.25, and I can assure you in next 2 years, your single cell will produce more than 5 watt of power in each cell. So one is that innovations is practically doubling the efficiency of a cell, and the capital cost is reducing by half. So that has led to bringing the solar power into a viable option. So why solar is important is because of this. So this is one important thing I wanted to bring it so that we can start with the right perspective. Now very important thing in solar, like how do we achieve 50 gigawatts in 2022, which is the vision of this conclave. It is actually not much. If I give you certain numbers of what is happening in India today, you will be surprised that probably after this half an hour, maybe IESA will revise this 50 gigawatt to 100 gigawatt. I can assure you that. I'll just give you a few examples. You guys might be aware of the RPO obligations which government has put in with the distribution companies, the captive power plant producers and the open access consumers. What does this mean is that if suppose in a month you are using 100 unit of power, you have to put 1%, 2%, 3% depending on the different states, you have to buy it from solar. So today among different states, the RPO obligation is around 0.25% to 1%, and this obligation will be up to 3% by 2022. Okay. Now, as on date, the total RPO obligation of all the distribution companies, only distribution companies I am including, I am not including captive power plants and open access, we are already short by 500 megawatts, just on date. And if we really look at the power requirement of this country by 2022, and if we put up a multiplier of 3%, which will be an obligation in 2022, the total RPO requirement is 34 gigawatts from solar alone. And this too, again, if you really look at the figures which I was talking to you 10 minutes back, that this is on a multiplier of the existing growth rate of energy sector, which is 4 to 5%. If our energy sectors grow by 10 to 12%, then this 34 gigawatts by 2022 will go up to 50 gigawatts. So only by doing an RPO here, sir, we are crossing 50 gigawatts. So this is the beauty of this entire solar space. So this is what I wanted to bring to your notice. But how do you achieve it? You know, this is the policies there. The government has done everything. They have given you the mission, they have given you the policy. The thing which is lacking, how do you implement it? Today there was, 3-4 days back, there was a news element in Times of India that out of the 28 states, only 3 states fulfill their RPO obligations for 2013. Rest of the states are either not concerned, or if they are concerned, they don't have money to buy such kind of power, or there is nobody to enforce that on them. So the lack is the will of enforcement on the administrative class and the political class. The day it comes, trust me, everything which we are talking about today is achievable. So the enforcement becomes a very, very important factor. Let's just give a brief view of what we are talking the RPO. The second thing on the solar part, which I want to bring to your notice or share with you is, where will the money come from? Because we all believe that solar has happened across the world on account of subsidies, which has been released by the governments. I'll give you a typical case in India. There's a very important vertical which is catching up is solar water pumps. Solar water pumping solution is a very important vertical which is catching up. And this is very important because it helps in farming, it helps farmers to get the energy, water through solar energy for 20-25 good years. Now what is happening? What are we doing on the administrative side? We are subsidizing our inefficiencies. I'll tell you why. This all started 3 years back when you didn't have very efficient submersible pumps. You didn't have submersible pumps which was available in India. So what you did was you bring out the policy suggesting that there is a well which has a depth of around 50 meters just to universalize it, and a farmer would require 50,000 liters of water per day. So to achieve that kind of output, I would like to put X amount of wattages of power plant in that. Now this all power plant went into being related to the power of the pump. If you have a 3 HP pump, then I would like to put 3,000 watt of solar panels to produce 50,000 liters per day. As and when the technology went up, as and when things went up, there was efficiencies in the solar pumping solutions, and same 50,000 LPD, liters per day of water, can be produced by a 2 HP pump with 1800 watt of solar panels. So what you're trying to say is, with same kind of output, you can do the same kind of output with much less of solar panels. And less of solar panels means less of subsidies. But what government has done is, at MNRE, you still have the same kind of subsidies which are related not with the output but with the input. The more panels you put in, the more subsidy you get it. It is absolutely unconcerned, or they are not concerned with the amount of liter per day which I am going to produce. I am going to produce with an 1.8 HP DC pump. I can produce 80,000 liters per day with 200 watt of panels. But still they are subsidizing the less efficient pumps with less LPDs. So they are wasting so much of money there. So, if we become more efficient, basically channelizing the existing systems, we don't have to create more subsidies. Just channelizing what you are doing it in the right areas, you still can bring a lot of change. I'll give you one example. Just to share with you, the biggest subsidy guzzler in India is diesel, right? It is like in tons, 70 million tons of diesel fuel is being sucked every year, out of which 12 to 13% goes into agriculture. Why I want to bring this agriculture thing here is because the diesel for agriculture is absolutely free. So in value terms, yearly subsidy for diesel is almost 50,000 crores in India. That is almost 90% of the current fiscal deficit, 19%. So what does this amount mean? Why I'm talking about the subsidy here is, if today, the guy was there from MNRE, we do interact with MNRE, we meet the joint secretaries, they all say, yes, policy is there, we understand it, but where is the money to take it forward? I can assure you, even if you divert 5% of diesel subsidy, which is only for agriculture.
But please give a big hand to Patel Sahab, please. Please give a standing ovation to H.S. Patel. Please give a standing ovation to him. Please give a standing ovation, and I think, yeah? Okay, good, sir, give us. Okay, so at least we should have a photo option. come over and we will have the SEMA's president give this away. Let them done the role of the SEMA president and give these mementos away. First, Rajendra Kalyani, Vice President, please come over. Welcome. Yes, yes, absolutely. Dinesh ji also can give together. No problem. Please engage them. Also, Mr. Yandini. I request the KBPPM come over, please. Very, very hard to bring this entire thing because without them, I don't think for me or anybody it was possible to achieve all this. Please give the team a big hand, a photo moment for them. Pura, please come over. Oh, I should join them, okay. Participated or not?